Parker, you can come over here and lay down. Can everyone let me know, is the sound okay? You can just shake your heads. You can hear me okay. Good. I wonder if anyone's thought about the subject regarding the God ideal.
Oh, yeah.
We can have a little conversation now.
Hello, it's Azima Martha from Calgary.
Hi, Azima. Hello. We don't see you, but that's okay if you don't want to be seen.
Yeah, I see you, and that's lovely. You're looking so well. When I when I thought of the first thing that I thought of when I saw the title of the class, "The God Ideal," I thought how fortunate it is to blend the word God with the word ideal, and to take it out of an image, place, a place that the word God brings up so many different things for so many people and different emotions. And I think by using the word, saying the word God ideal, it just opens up a whole new avenue of, I think, inner and outer experience.
Yes. Yes, and this paper.
That's the God ideal.
Yeah, go ahead, hon.
No, I just was saying the God ideal.
Yeah.
Just repeating myself.
I think it's I think that's exactly right, and you'll see as the teaching goes that yeah, and I also think it relates so much. Well, I don't know it's Parker doing.
Hi, Parker.
Announce that someone's here. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Which side of the door?
Yeah, it's just Parker. Parker.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, you don't.
Yeah, he's nice.
Well, he's been selling everyone's cats.
Seems very fun to do stuff. Do you have one in your purse? Do you have food in your purse?
No, but I probably have in the past.
Fascinated, smelling you up and down. So we were just before class started. I was asking people if they had contemplated the title, "The God Ideal," and what that means. And Azima, who's in Canada, said that. Well, I mean, you can say it again, Azima, because I think it was worth repeating.
Okay. I just feel, what came up for me was when I saw the title of the class as being the God Ideal, just the word God blended with ideal brings up such different contemplations and energies than simply the word God, which carries so much, carries a lot of baggage, let's face it. Helpful, more helpful and less helpful when said on its own. And I think the word God ideal, or the blend of words God ideal, it brings up a new inner realm to think about God and to feel God and to experience what a God ideal is for oneself and for others.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else? I should have given an assignment before that you came. Well, I would hope that you would just be interested and think about it. I think that's really very wise, and I think but it also brings up, as you're talking, Azima, there are two quotes that come up for me of Murshida's, and that's one, "Shatter your ideal on the rock of truth." That once we build right? I mean, it's not necessarily a fixed ideal. As we grow and mature and our understanding grows and matures, perhaps that ideal gets shattered and reshaped and shattered and reshaped, right? The other thing that
Yes.
right? And it comes to my mind also that quote about the farther you move towards the horizon, horizon, it's not that exact quote, but the horizon continues to recede. So it's like,
Yes.
it's not a finite goal or even understanding that it's evolutionary or we could say revelatory.
Yeah. And it's not one thing,
right?
Or one experience. I like, Azima, that you use the term experience, because I feel that it just, when you use the term God ideal, there are experiences that one has that I know for myself, there are certain aspects of nature that really make me feel a sense of God, even though, you know, there might not be a form to give that God, but what I'm surrounded by it is a form that awakens that sense of that something that's greater than myself. And then that in itself is, the experience is awakening that ideal within me. Yeah. And I don't think of it that way, you know. Sometimes it's God's out here, the experience is here, but it brings them together.
Yeah. 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 Yes.
Last month, the bowl of sake had several readings on ideal. I don't remember the phrase God ideal in there, but that it was several teachings in a row on having something to focus on to keep us coming back, which is a concept that's been really important for me recently.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't have any of them memorized. I tend to read it very early in the morning.
Yeah. No, and it's repetition after decades. Some of it starts to sink in. I was trying to make the quote of one of the Sufi thoughts about the holy manuscript of nature, and I can never get it right. You know, I never can get the words exactly. I need to commit it to memory, but you know, it's a beautiful one too, and it relates to what you were saying, Gemma.
Well, and I was even thinking that Murshid gives us those ideals when he says, you know, we say toward the one.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, you know, love, harmony, and beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if I could borrow a pillow, or if you could give me one from somewhere else, Joe. I think I need one for my back. Thank you. This will be too much. Yeah. I think this, let me try this one. Yeah, this is good. Maybe a smaller one's better. You're often right. And you'll have it on the recording now. It's really
It sparkles.
It's a really sparkly pillow.
When I
Go ahead, hon.
okay, when I think of using the term God ideal, also in situations where I am wondering how to behave, how to conduct myself, when I say when I say that term, God ideal, I feel as though it almost invokes it feels like a calling up of the great inner guide, and it becomes there's a participation by myself in what people these days call a co-creation. I just think using the word God ideal also encourages a sense of a co-creation and a sense of I have a responsibility here to God is trying to bring out my highest, a greatest ideal for whatever the purpose of the context is, and it becomes there's an inner dialogue, so that there are two energies speaking to one another and having a conversation about what would be the God ideal, would be to see through this situation, and that there are two people, there are two entities in that conversation, not just one or the other. For me,
it brings to mind these two words like aspiration and inspiration. That those are two words that are coming. I think when I hear Gemma speak, I think that's her inspiration, and as I hear you speak, I hear aspiration. I think they're
yes.
Right. I think that those are
yes.
contemplate. What do we aspire to, and what inspires us to that aspiration. So think about those words. I think words are kind of important. I mean, they're very important. They're often misunderstood, but they can invoke certain things and an understanding. So does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good.
Now, Martha, we can't see you. Is there a reason for that? Do you not want to be seen?
Oh, no. No, I'm sitting here. I'm actually on my computer, and it says.
Hey, should you have tape?
And it says that.
Oh,
there is this is frustrating, but it is what it is. There is a slight, maybe 2-second time delay between when I talk and when I see you all respond. So I'm just going to have to. I'm going to proceed with a sense of a 2-second time delay. But to explain what I'm seeing on my computer, I was able to audio in, but I see next door start video, which I would think would bring my image in, but there's a red cross, a red diagonal slash through it, and I can't seem to. It says, okay, your camera is not launched properly. Check my browser media permission settings. If I check my browser permission media settings, they tell me that I may be able to uncross that start video and bring an image in.
It may slow down more for you.
I beg your pardon?
It could slow things down for you. You can turn it off and on as you wish. Here's the thing. Right now, I'd like everyone, we'll leave the video running because there are people in the room that can introduce themselves. We had some of that before, a little earlier. But I do want you to right now, everyone in the lower left corner of your screen is a microphone. It's like an old-fashioned icon. And can you mute that? Because otherwise every sound from around the world will be May I ask the person, I'm seeing a column of people and I see a gentleman and I'm at a distance from the screen and I don't recognize you and I don't see your name. Can I ask you to tell me who you are?
Hello, you mean me?
I do hear you.
Do you mean me?
I mean you.
The guy with the glasses?
The guy with glasses. Hi.
Right. Yes, I'm from Holland. I'm an old Sufi guy. My parents are Sufis. I was baptized even like a Sufi by Murshida Nuria. Well, anyway, and but I very much like your conversation. There's a lot of things not so.
I think we'll continue it. I think we'll listen to Murshida's words and then we can continue the conversation. Where do you live in the Netherlands?
I'm living close to The Hague.
The Hague, okay. And your name?
And I'm Jalil.
Jamil. Okay, nice.
Jalil, the masculine variety.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. And you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's ask everyone again to mute their microphone in the lower left corner. And when you speak, you'll need to unmute it, of course. I think is there someone that's still not muted? Mary, can you do? I think it's Marilee. Marilee, you're going to need to mute that microphone, please. And Dennis also. I think you're there with Marilee. So let's take a moment just to turn inward. And let us say the invocation of pure Murshida Inayat Khan together. Please let the breath and the consciousness be subtle, and listen to everyone saying the prayer together as one voice, not two, not six, not 20, one voice. Towards the one, the perfection of
love,
Harmony and beauty.
Please mute your microphone and just say it there with us. And we'll just say it yourself. And we'll begin again. Towards the one,
The perfection of love, harmony, and beauty.
the
The only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
Now, open your palms and bring them together as a cup. And take your breath that has just said these sacred words and fill the cup. Blow into it. And pour this cup of blessing upon yourself. The title of this teaching of Murshid's is called The God Ideal. And the subtext to it is the existence of God. So it could be the existence of God, exclamation point, or the existence of God, question mark. But here's a quote to begin with from the Gairon. The God ideal is the flower of creation. The God ideal is the flower of creation and the realization of truth, its fragrance. The God ideal is the flower of creation and the realization of truth, its fragrance. It's a profound quote in a way because, again, it has to do with inspiration and aspiration, with the visible and the invisible world, with the relative and the absolute. So this flower of creation suggests something that's object-oriented, but the fragrance becomes much more subtle. So I wondered to begin with, to kind of focus us all together, if we could just, on the breath, put this phrase on the swing, and let's see what happens. For just a few breaths. And someone's not muted there, and I'm going to ask you, lower left corner, mute your microphone. So we're going to start, well, let me just describe the practice. We'll first take a breath in together. And as we breathe out, and I'll say the words for us a few times, we're going to think these words. We won't say them aloud. The God ideal is the flower of creation. And then we breathe in. The realization of truth is its fragrance. And then when we breathe out again, the God ideal is the flower of creation. And when we breathe in, the realization of truth is its fragrance. So let's take a breath in, and we begin by breathing out. The God ideal is the flower of creation. And when we breathe in, the realization of truth is its fragrance. And we breathe out. The God ideal is the flower of creation. And as we breathe in, the realization of truth is its fragrance. I'll say it one more time. The God ideal is the flower of creation. And in, the realization of truth is its fragrance. Amen. I do want the people that are joining us online to know that if you hear snoring, it's no one in the room, at least not right now. It's our dog, our black lab Parker, who we also fondly call Sparky because he's Sparky. So he's very relaxed right now until someone walks down the street or the mailman comes. So you may hear him also barking, but it's Parker. And snoring. He's snoring right now. You may be picking that up. So Murshida's words on this God ideal, the existence of God. He says, the existence of God is a question which arises in every mind, whether in the mind of the believer in God or in the mind of the unbeliever. There are moments when the greatest believer in God questions God's existence. Whether there really is a God. The ideal of God is inborn, Murshida tells us. The ideal of God is inborn. The God ideal is the flower of humanity, and this flower blooms in the realization of God. That's such a beautiful phrase. The God ideal is the flower of humanity, and this flower blooms in the realization of God. So it is true. I've heard people ask that question. How can there be a God and babies get sick and suffer and die? How can there be a God and there's so much unrest? How can there be a God and there are people that hate each other because of their color or religion? This question comes up for people. And it's a challenge, I think. But it's also a perspective that's, at least for me, is one that doesn't kind of zoom back and get the bigger picture. You know, what is the purpose? What is the real purpose? What is the real meaning? What do those tragedies and travesties and atrocities invoked for us. I remember I used to do a lot of sweat lodges. Some of you may know what that is, the Native American sweat lodges. And the people that would guide those lodges would say, we'd get very hot in them, you know, extremely hot. And we'd stay for long periods of time. And the masters and mistresses of the ceremony would always say, if you're suffering, pray harder. If you're suffering, pray harder. It's good if we can find a meaning in all of that. I've said it many times, having accompanied my mother on the path of cancer and going to the cancer center many times with her and seen all kinds of people who were so very ill. And yet they could speak to each other kindly, they were considerate, they were engaged. And I thought to myself, these people are more living than a lot of people that aren't dying. You probably know what I'm talking about.
It's true.
Isn't it true?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So live, and open up to the possibilities and see the meaning, see the signs, read what's being given to you, what's God presenting, what's that divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, what's it presenting to you. Murshida goes on to say, God and the God ideal may be explained as the sun and the light. Just as there come times when the sun becomes covered by clouds, so there comes times when the God ideal becomes covered by, in this instance, he said materialism, but we could put a lot of different words there. But if the cloud for a moment covers the sun, that does not mean that the sun is lost to you. And in Tibetan Buddhism, there's that practice, I think it's Sogyal Rinpoche, and then the Malpa tradition talks about it, that as you're meditating, sometimes people have a hard time just meditating and focusing their mind, and he'll say, think of it as this great expanse of blue sky, that's your mind, or we could call it the heart. The Buddhists always point to their heart when they say that. And the sun is there, this brilliant light to illuminate the way. And as the thoughts come up, think of them as clouds that go before the sun and kind of create a shadow. But just like you can't grasp onto a cloud, don't grasp onto these thoughts. Let them pass, just like the clouds will pass before the sun. So there's an example of how this phrase can be used in meditation. Just as there come times when the sun becomes covered by clouds, so there come times when the God ideal becomes covered by materialism. But if the cloud for a moment covers the sun, that does not mean that the sun is lost to you. So it is with the reign of materialism, or suffering, or tragedy, or loss, whatever the word is there. So it is with the reign of materialism. The God ideal seems to have disappeared, yet God is there all the same. The condition of the world is just like the ever-rising and falling waves. Sometimes they seem to rise, and sometimes to fall. But with every rising and falling wave, the sea is the same. So with all its changes, life is the same. That's also, each line of this teaching is totally profound, because what does that mean? With with each rising and falling of the wave, the sea is the same, and so with changes in life, it is the same. I mean, Murshid's suggesting there's this one eternal life, and there's these blips that happen. But we rise out of that, and we fall back into that. When I was studying with Pir Vilayat and he was still alive, I used to give a lot of reference, Mariam, you might remember this, really focusing on the eternal now. The eternal now. And he would also say the eternal moment. And he would tune us with the breath to that. And for those of you that know the breath, and I think most of you do, Kasab, the alternate, or pranayama, alternate nostril breathing, it can be done there. We used to be instructed to breathe in the left and hold and breathe out the right. And breathe in the right and hold and breathe out the left. And Pir Vilayat, I'm not going to do it now because of time, but we can another time if people wish. Pir Vilayat would talk about the left. There's a lot of different sciences to the breath. But in this instance, he would talk about put something you wish to transform in your life on the breath. And you can just do it. I mean, you can meditate as I say it. And then he said, take that situation or circumstance or challenge or whatever this is that you're wishing to transform. Transmute was often the word he would use, as in transmuting base metals into gold. And cast it with your left breath into the past. Draw it from the past into the present moment, and that's on the hold with the kasab. And then cast it to the right, into the future. Now bring that circumstance with the wisdom and knowledge and understanding of the future back into this present eternal moment. And now send it back into the past and see how it's changed. And we would work with the breath in this way to transform those things that we wish to transform. It's really a profound practice. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be on this recording if you want to work with it again. So I'll repeat it again. You focus on the breath. Then you breathe in through the left, drawing something from the past. Because it's true, we often use all the conditions of the past to identify who we are, or make excuses for who we are, or brag about who we are, whatever it is. It's really, none of it's true. It's just concepts. But it might be something that's troubling to us that we feel is unresolved. And it might be unresolved with someone that maybe is even past and we feel it can't be resolved. It can be. Time is not linear. It's eternal. It's all right now happening. So you breathe in from the left, drawing that circumstance into the present moment, the eternal moment. And you breathe out towards the right, casting it into the future. But then from the future, you draw knowledge and understanding and wisdom back into the present moment. And then you put it back in its place by breathing out the left. And you see maybe it's changed or transformed. Just as the rising and the falling of the waves happen, but fall into the same sea. Now Murshid goes on in this paper and he says, it is the nature of every soul to search for light. It is the nature of every soul to search for light. But the great question is, how can light come when nation is against nation? I mean, how true are these words today? Race against race, and the followers of one religion against the followers of another. How can there be peace and light? Murshid says, the sign of the day is that all things are clear. And the sign of the night is that nothing can be found or seen. So I thought here he's asking about how can there be peace and light? And I wonder if it's not that we create that within our own atmosphere. I think it's true. I think that as we change the atmosphere around us changes. So let's work with these two qualities, light and peace. The corresponding wazifa is Nur and Salam. Ya Nur, Ya Salam. And those of us in our Murid circle will take up these practices now until we meet again. But just to give you a few words about the meaning of Nur, it's light or luminosity itself. It's self-illuminating awareness. That lights us up from within, and it's almost like it casts a light on our path to illuminate it. It is existent in all forms of wisdom and guidance. Ya Nur. And Ya Salam is peace itself. We know that it's often used as a greeting. Even in Zahar and I went to Ash Wednesday down at the cathedral, the Catholic Church, and they asked us to turn and greet everyone. And there's a piece at the Mass at a certain point, and probably in other services as well. But you know, when you turn and you greet those around you, or you cast a glance to people, other places, and you say, peace be with you. You wish them that. In the Middle East, every time someone would come to the door, they'd say, you know, As-salam. And when you leave, As-salamu alaykum. Go with God. So it's in the language. It's a word, a sacred word that can be invoked when there's disharmony in relationships. But it doesn't create a cessation of this disharmony, but it helps to transform that disharmony through peace. And the root means to be safe. So think of that. When we feel safe, we feel peaceful. When we don't feel safe, it's that fight or flight will come out. So what does it mean to be safe? And it is this miraculous word that God speaks to our souls. But it's always there, but are we listening? If we tune in and listen, that sacred vibration, feel safe. I am with you. I have never forsaken you. We've read those, the footprints in the sand. Why were there only one? Because I was carrying you when you were in need. We've read those things. I think you all have. You're familiar with those sayings. It's like, I was alone. No, you weren't alone. I was carrying you, God says. That's why there was only one set of footprints. So know that you're safe. God is here. And also know that that is constantly being spoken to us, but do we listen? Do we hear? So let's just let me explain how and why I give the practices in this way. First, they're said aloud on the tone. And you can, when you're doing the practice alone, you can use this tone for the first 11, and then you can just go quietly saying aloud the practice. So it will sound like this in this instance. Ya Nur, Ya Salam. Listen again. Ya Nur, Ya Salam. Do it on your own note. You don't have to follow me or the tone of my voice. After we do that 11 times, we'll whisper it. And we'll just say the word, Nur, Salam, And as we breathe in, that breathe into your heart and saying it aloud too. And this is the safe place. And then radiate from the heart, salam, peace, as a greeting, as a wish, as a prayer. And then after we do that 11 times, we'll just say it on the breath, breathing in Noor quietly, silently into the heart, and salam out. Now, why do we do it this way? Imagine yourself that you're in a wilderness. You wouldn't go, you'd be going, help, help. You'd be saying it aloud, trying to get someone's attention. But once you get someone's attention and they get close to you, you don't keep yelling at them. You'd speak more softly, in a gracious way. And if it's the beloved, the divine beloved, there becomes no need for words at all. So the practice becomes subtler and subtler. I'm convinced that this relates to Murshida's. You know, he loved the number 3, he loved the number 5. We talked about that. But when we say the prayer, the healing prayer, heal my body, the most dense, heart more subtle, soul more subtle. So think of that you're speaking to these parts of yourself. Okay? Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So together we'll take a breath in. Breathe in. And now we breathe in and out. Concentrate on the word. Bring the light into the heart. Cast it out. Peace. And now on the breath, breathing in more, casting that light out in all directions with peace, great peace. Ya Nur, Ya Salam. Did you feel something? Did you feel it? Yeah. So here's the thing. People say, oh, my day is so busy. I don't have a lot of time. Really, I have to do this and that. And, you know, even if you, and people I always would say that. And Dalai Lama would say that to us when we take empowerments with him. If you can't do it 100,000 times, do it one time with great devotion. So you see just 11, 11, 11, 33. If you have time and you concentrate better doing that than blah, 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 blah. You know, just do it that many times, but concentrate and feel it, use it. Now, you're in the grocery store line and you're getting irritated. What's so hard about breathing in, Ya Nur, and out, Ya Salam? Use the practices in everyday life too. It just doesn't happen on the cushion. It really comes into action off the cushion or out of your special place. Murshid says this: God is love. Then we, every one of us, can prove God in us by expressing God and love in our life. That's pretty simple. God is love. Then we, every one of us, can prove God in us by expressing love in our life. I think it's also very good to remember that when Murshid talks about these things, I think it's so far above sentimentality, you know, butterflies and unicorns and, you know, rainbows. It's really this deep, abiding love, even in the midst of challenges, anger, whatever it can be, conflict. If we can try to radiate love, it changes things. It's so disarming. It's so disarming. I don't know, I've told this story probably recently, but I tell it again because it illustrates it. So I think most of you know I was a college professor through my professional career, and of course I encountered a great many different kinds of people. One of them was this young man who was so angry. You could just tell the way he entered the room. He was always kind of mad and disgruntled. Not only that, but he looked mad and disgruntled. So we're talking a lot of leather, you know, a lot of just dark. I mean, there was darkness. And people tended to avoid him and other people by constantly just drawing. I'm sure it was a way he focused his mind. But I never judged him. I treated him like I did all the other students. And one day, it happened, we were on the elevator alone. And Joe knows this about me. You know, I just go up to people and say things that most people would probably imagine but never think of saying. So I said, so what's up with this? I kind of do this. And he said, what? I said, do you realize if I didn't know you and I was on this elevator alone with you, I'd probably feel a little afraid. Is this what this is about? You want people to be afraid of you? Are you trying to scare people? And he said, no, but I don't know another way to dress. Oh. And I said, well, if you're thinking of getting a job, this might not be the way to do it, unless you want to do it as, someone's bodyguard or something. And he said, but I don't know any other way to dress. And then he said, will you help me? And I said, yes, I will. I said, I have some fashion magazines. They show men's fashion there. And you go and get a gentleman's quarterly. And we'll look together. And we'll find something that's, hip, but that you feel comfortable. And you know what? We don't have to pay a lot of money. We can go to the secondhand stores and get some clothes. We can do that together. But, he knew that I was truly interested in trying to help him. I wasn't criticizing him, and it just disarmed him so he could be honest. So that's how love can work in many different ways. And sometimes it can be maybe a little tough love, too. Those of you that are parents know that can be helpful. So God is love, then we, every one of us, can prove God in us by expressing love in our life. Yes, according to external customs of the different religions, one goes to church, one goes to the mosque, one goes to the synagogue, and one goes to the temple of the Buddha. But the inner church, I remember the first time I was on a retreat. I can't do things in small ways. I was in the Swiss Alps with Pir Vilayat, and I was in a tent. Can you imagine? Anyway, and it rained, as it often did when Pir Vilayat, and lightning, and it was very intense. But I adjusted. It was worth it. But I remember when I first got there, I felt very alone. I didn't know anyone. It was a European camp. There really weren't any Americans there. And I remember sitting there just as they were ringing the dinner bell. So it was like, it was like this ding, ding. It was a big bell. And I thought, and it was like this call to me. And I heard this voice say, build the sanctuary within. It was, I've never forgotten it, and that was decades ago. Build the sanctuary within. And that's what Murshid is saying right here. But the inner church, the sanctuary within, is neither in the mosque nor in the synagogue, but in the heart of every human being. With this divine element lighted in the heart, Yanur, one will go to the house of prayer, and then one's prayer will be heard. Where's the house of prayer? It's everywhere and always. So let's do a practice. We'll use again the sacred word Nur, luminosity itself. We're going to couple it with Hai, H-A-Y-Y, but it's like hi. In America, a lot of us say hi to each other. I always imagine, really, I'm saying hi. Okay? So you can do that too, because it's like hi. And what is Hai? The sacred word Hai is the life principle that never dies. It's the all-living. And this is true whether something is animate, inanimate, material, spiritual, or anything in between. I love the Japanese culture because, inanimate objects have a life in them. And they really do. If anyone's watching Tidying Up, Marie Kondo, when people are discarding objects, she always says hold them and say thank you. You know, that it's not like a piece of clothing, if you're giving it away. Thank it for having clothed you and protected you or given you enjoyment or brought you memories. And then instead of just throwing it in a bag, she always asks people to fold it neatly and put it away. To respect even the inanimate. Because you know what it is? It's respecting all of the sacrifice of the material, the labor. She doesn't say this. I think this. The labor, the material, the shipping, the resources. It's giving thanks for all of that brought even that inanimate object into existence. Well, if we're going to do that for an inanimate object, don't we think that we deserve to do that to each other? Think about the life of each, whether you like them or you don't like them. The fact is they are bringing this whole wealth of experience. And the Buddhists would say the causes and conditions that have made them who they are. And yet, maybe they're ignorant of the fact that they're beyond that. Yahai is also vitality. What a great thing to have. Not this kind of dead presence, but a vitality, kind of enthusiasm, a life force. And it also is, it arouses this energy and freedom. So now we're talking, before we were talking about salam. It's the safe place. But Yahai gives us freedom. Those of you that know me well know I say, free yourself from the constrictions of all conventions. Because then until you do so, you're not free at all. You're worried about what everyone else is thinking and how everybody else is doing it. But you are you. Be you. Play your note. Be free. Again, an example of that first retreat in the Alps. I had become friends with a young woman, and she was Swiss, and she had been hired. Here's an interesting thing. Pir Vilayat would always surround himself, talking a lot about Pir Vilayat today, but Murshida Nuria was my most recent teacher. Pir Vilayat, Pir Murshida Nuria. But Pir Vilayat would surround, he'd always find someone that was a bit troubled or had been troubled in their lives or in trouble in their lives. And he would put them in a position close to him. So a cook, a driver, like that was his way. Like he just brought them into his atmosphere, showed that he gave a reliance on them. And by doing that it lifted them to an ideal. It was very powerful. He didn't reject them. He brought the most troubled, most challenged into his sphere and let them be close to him. What a privilege. So this young woman, she was very candid with me. She had been troubled with drugs and alcohol, but she was in recovery, which is constant, as anyone knows that's been troubled in that way or challenged. And he decided that of all the people, she was going to be his personal cook and serve him. And I thought, what a beautiful example that he trusted her and wanted her to do that for him. Because they say that the atmosphere around the food is very important. So we became friends. And one night, it wasn't Pir Vilayat presenting, it was something else. And we were both tired. And we had to walk through the Alps to get to where we were staying. I wasn't at this point. I also had a room. When I was in retreat, I was in the tent. And she was staying at this facility because that's where Pir Vilayat and family were. And she was cooking there for me. And she said, let's get out of here. And I said, I don't dare get up and leave. Plus, I have to tell you, it was the new moon and there's no light up there, right? I mean, there's like some sort of kerosene thing in the tent. It was a big tent, but there's no lights. And I didn't have, a torch or a flashlight or an iPhone then to light my way. I only had Yanur. So she looked at me and she said, what do you mean you can't go? I said, I don't dare get up. I'd be so embarrassed. And she looked right at me and she said, "Aren't you free?" That was another program. Build a sanctuary within. Aren't you free? Aren't you a free person? And I thought, yeah, I'm free. Let's get out of here. So we got up and we get out of the tent. And of course, it is pitch black. And I'm like, and those narrow footways that you have to follow in the mountains. And you know what? It didn't matter. There was enough light. And every once in a while, there was a stone that was painted white that would mark our way. And we made it safely home. We just freed ourselves and we decided we'd generate our own light and feel safe wherever we were. And we were. So we're going to work with this Yanur, and then Yahai has a bit of force to it. So it will sound like this. Yanur Yahai. Yanur Yahai. And then we'll bring it into the whisper and the silent invocation. Okay? Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we think this light, this luminosity, this self-awakening wisdom and inner guidance, again, we think of it in the heart, and then we think, yeah, hi, and we let it just burst forth with this vitality. Okay? Got it? Everybody got it over there? Shake your heads if you do. Okay. Yanur Yahai. 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 Last time. Yanur Yahai. Now whisper, breathing in more to that inner sanctuary and high with great enthusiasm and vitality, radiating outward. High. 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 That's it. Now we go on the breath. Refine the breath. Should be inaudible. Yanur Yahai. I like this story that Pir Shabda says. He was at the mentor garden where Murshid Sam lived, his teacher. And he was in the garden. If you go there, you know, there's this little Buddha, and he was sitting there and he was doing his practices with great vigor and force, loudly. And Murshid said, you think you're trying, why are you shouting your practices like that? You think God can't hear you? You know, so it can also be very subtle. I mean, we can learn to do that in a very subtle way as well. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to think about. Murshid says the work of the Sufi message is destined to do, the work the Sufi message is destined to do in the present epoch is to bring about a better understanding among the followers of the different religions. The Sufi message is not a new message, although it strikes the note of the day. Here I think he's sort of referring to, that activity of the universal worship, inviting people of different faiths to come to worship together, to read the different scriptures, to see that it is one and the same message, but in different times in a different language. The Sufi message is not a new message, although it strikes the note of the day. It is the re-echo of the same voice heard in all ages. At the present time, when races, nations, and the followers of different religions are against each other, the word of unity and peace alone can unite all together. The word of unity and peace alone. There's only a little bit more of this reading, but I thought here we would pause and we would do another practice. So those in the You Read circle will have 3 new practices that you'll see how they all interrelate. So Murshid is referring to unity, this ideal of unity. Not uniformity, unity. Don't try to make everyone the same. We see diversity in unity. It's like when you go to a beautiful garden and there are all different flowers, yet it is a garden. Or there are a variety of fragrances that make an attar, a mixture. It's a unity. We're going to work with ahad. Ahad means unity. Ahad doesn't make any distinctions that are made between this prophet and that prophet. We see it as one constant stream of God coming through the spirit of guidance through each prophet. But it's this, each one of the prophets is a completeness, an entity that is complete and whole in and of itself. So when you hear the arguments of someone's not going to go to paradise or go to whatever if they haven't, whatever, been baptized or received Jesus or whatever these things that people say, here Murshid's saying each prophet, each one is a complete entity of the whole, meaning it doesn't matter how the message comes from the womb. It's that we've listened and our hearts have become filled with love and understanding. Now listen to this description. This is from the Physicians of the Heart. Ahad is the center of a circle without any circumference. What does that mean when you think about it? How profound. It's the center of a circle without any circumference. It's ever expanding, ever inclusive. There are no boundaries. There's no this and that. There's just isness, spaciousness, inclusion. So that's ahad. How profound. And we're going to couple that again with salam. Peace or unity and peace, which Murshid was talking about. Okay? So we could think of ourselves at that center of the circle And when we say Ahad, radiating in all directions, including all things, in a heart of love. And then we say, Ya Salam. So it'll sound like this. Ya Ahad, Ya Salam. Ya Ahad, Ya Salam. You know, it's like this really strong affirmation. There is one. Not two, not five, not 10, not bazillion, million. We're all one. What's that saying? I love that saying. You know, if we cut each other, we all bleed in the same way. We all have the same feelings. We all know what other people know somehow. We can connect in that way. When I was doing sabbatical research and I was going to go to India and Italy, and then I was looking at brand psychology in different cultures. And the sabbatical committee said, well, do you speak the languages of India? And do you speak Italian? And I said, there's only one language. It's love. And it's expressed in one way, with a smile. And I said, that's got me all around the world. And it works. You can get just about anything you need by that. And pointing and pantomiming. It works too. You have to be expressive. You have to have that vitality. So when you think of a hut, it's like this real vow or a stamp on if I don't, I wish to experience the unity of all things. And salam. That I feel safe in that unity, that others feel safe in that unity. I was reading a story, it's a short story to a longer book about a small girl who lived in the district of the Republic of the Congo. And you know, after their president, the plane came down, the president died, and chaos ensued. Still chaos. And different factions going in to get the resources, and one overpowering the other. And she was in the yard playing with her sister who was older than her. The mother said, they're coming to check, run into the jungle. And they kept running. They ran through they finally found their way to a refugee camp. And then they were shipped to 7 different countries before they came to America. She ended up, she's a high-end fashion model now. The story's told in a very beautiful way. Anyone that's interested, I'll copy it and share it. At the beginning, you hear how she's writing it almost in the language of a child, you know. And then how, as an adult, or she gets older, going towards high school now in America, and people ask her these questions and want to liken it to, like, oh, it's like the Holocaust, or it's like what happened in Cambodia. And, you know, that it's so objectified for people that it was insulting to her because they had no idea, you know, what she had experienced. And I think of that, you know, that we are so privileged to be sitting in our homes and to be at relative peace, that we should be trying as much as we can to generate that, whether we think it's a benefit or not. It is. And when we think of this great privilege and beautiful safety and peace that we have, we can think of all those that don't have it and offer it to them. The angels are speaking at someone's phone. I'm not exactly sure, but it's.
Oh,
So that's all right. It's fine. It'll be answered and it'll be fine. But at any rate, that is something that we can think about and be grateful, and also send that to those that are suffering in that way or challenged in that way. She said we crossed by a lake, and now she realized they were dead bodies, but she didn't know what death was. So she thought they were sleeping in the water. I mean, you know, the perspective of a child. But that she went through that, you know. She said at one point in the refugee camp, she just kept saying, my name's Clementine. I'm Clementine. She said, if I cling to the name, I thought I could cling to my identity. You know, that we've never had to deal with those things for the most part. I mean, some of us have if we've dealt with refugees or whatever. I know what it's like having lived in the Tibetan refugee camps, what people go through and the stories I've heard. But we are so privileged and so blessed. And if you don't do the practices for yourself, do it for all those people and offer it to them. So let us say, Ahad. Ya Ahad. Ya Salam. 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 Last one. Ya Ahad. Ya Salam. Now breathe into the center of the circle. Ahad. And breathe out to the circle with no circumference. Salam. First we whisper, sorry. In, out, salam. In, out, salam. In, out, salam. Out, last time. Breathing in and out. Breathe in, breathe out. Salam. Ya Ahad, Ya Samad. A few more sentences. Murshid's words. The Sufi message is given to all nations. It is a call to all races and the followers of all religions. It teaches people to follow whatever religion they may profess, but to follow it truly and to understand it better. Not only to believe in God and the words of the prophets, but to have faith in God and in the divine word. Teaches people to follow whatever religion they may profess, but to follow it and truly, and to follow it with understanding. Not only to believe in God and the words of the prophets, but to have faith in God and the divine word. One must think of the tolerance of the holy ones and of the forgiveness and what the world would be today if we had it too. If we follow the natural religion, that divine impulse that is in every heart, then we shall be living the true religion. So Murshid's giving us this idea that the natural religion, to be natural, that this is the true religion, not to try to be something else or somewhere else or just to be natural. But what is it he's asking us to consider as the divine ideal? Love, forgiveness, tolerance, understanding, wisdom. These things, they're things that we have, but you know, this is why I think it's said in the Bible, be ye as little children. We learn too much, and then we try to think our way through things. And then we don't, as Murshid says, do we hear this divine word, this divine impulse that is constantly coming from within. Doesn't it say that in the prayers?
Mm-hmm.
That I may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. We have to be quiet and listen. Go to our safe place. It's something very deep to contemplate. You know, where do we feel safe and at ease and at home? And where can we turn down the noise? It's part of the path. Then we shall be living the true religion. If we follow the natural religion, a divine impulse that is in every heart, then we shall be living the true religion. So as a reminder, the coming practices for those in this, the reads in this circle, we'll do Ya Nur Ya Salam, self-illuminating awareness, touching that divine light, and Salam, that place, that safe place, that prayer that's constantly being whispered to us by God. And Ya Nur, again, that light, with Ya Hai, that vitality. And then Ahad, this affirmation of witnessing and being unity with peace, Salam. There'll be a study guide on the website, and I just want to let people know here that we always have our little donation basket. You you can offer something through the website. Also, Facebook, through the website, it goes through PayPal, so a percentage is taken. But on Facebook, you know, people are very critical of Facebook, but they have a way that you can donate it to a nonprofit, which we are. And it is, it's called Network for Good. And it takes a while for them to process it, but every penny is sent to us. There's no cost, which, you know, it takes maybe 5 or 6 weeks, which means Network for Good is using the money. They're maybe investing, making money off the money. Who cares? They're not taking any of it. We eventually get every penny that's donated through Facebook. And I have something up on my Facebook where you can make a donation there. And I think if you have a PayPal account, you can pay through PayPal, or you can credit card. Also in PayPal, you can do that. So I'm gonna move towards the computer for just a moment, and I'm gonna see if I can find the setting where we can see everyone together online. And then if you will keep your computer muted from afar, we'll then have a little, we kind of run out of time, but if those want to continue the conversation about this teaching, thoughts that maybe came up, questions that came up, or about the God ideal specifically and what that means to you as we began the class, you know, feel free to. We'll also be having some tea and snacks here, and we offer that to you virtually. And as I said, I'm going to go towards the screen. I'm going to open it up so we can see each other. We're going to close with the prayer cartoon, though, after I do.